welcome to another episode of Rate That Full Art Supporter. And you know what? Today we have reached a very interesting one, at least in my opinion, but I'll leave it to you whether you think the same once we are, well, done with this video. Today's supporter is no other than, well, wait for it. And here we go. It is Archie's Ace in the Hole. And this one, if you don't know it, well, you better get to know it. This is a very good supporter. And I still think it's very good and expanded, in my opinion at least. But you know what? You can make up your own mind. It's also perfectly fine. So, before we get into the details of what you guys thought, because remember, all the results I present here is based on what you replied in the survey. And remember, if you want to be part of the next survey or want to get your results or bonus facts displayed, please don't hesitate to follow the link in the description below to check for the next supporters to be rated. But you know what? Let's take a look at what can it actually do for us, this supporter. So why is it so good, at least in my opinion? Well, first of all, you can only play this card if it's the last card in your hand, which sounds like a pretty big restriction, but then you look at the payoff and you're like, that's pretty good. You can put any water Pokemon from your discard pile onto your bench, and then you draw 5 cards. The point is here, doesn't have to be a basic Pokemon. It can also be a stage 1 or stage 2, which is why this has also been known very, well, infamous from Archie's Blastoise deck. So you simply play down your hand the first turn, using all the valuable resources you have in Expanded, like Computer Search, X, you name it. You have so many things that can help you to achieve that, well, this is the only one card in your hand, so you can get Blastoise into play on the very first turn. Did I forget Battle Compressor? I sure did, but here we go. Very strong card. But let's see, first of all, what is Archie's Ace in the Hole called in other languages? And I like this one because this is where we get the German one, Adrian's Ass in Ermel, if I pronounce it correctly. A lot of people made a lot of fun of this, and it's also been really a collectible object for a lot of people. That's also why it is very hard this day to find a German version of Archie's Ace in the Hole out there. For other languages, I'm not gonna make myself ridiculed by mispronouncing all these here. It's gonna be terrible, but you can take a look. What is Archie's Ace in the Hole called in different languages? Now, let's get to the interesting part, which is what did you guys rate this as? And as usual, we rate on 4 pillars, which is standard, expanded, uniqueness, and artwork, each of which you can rate between 1 and 5, 1 being bad and 5 being great. And if we look it up here first in the upper left corner, we see this is for standard. So when the card was in standard, you have to think. That is a very solid 4, I would say. So you do see some people value it lower, but that's because when it was in standard at the time, it was not the easiest one to play. You could, well, it did win Worlds 2015, didn't it, when it was in standard. And expand, you just see that the distribution widens a little bit more variance here, but it still goes with a lot of force. And just like with many other cards, we do observe that it has a lot of high values when it comes to both uniqueness and artwork, which is very interesting to see. I know this doesn't look very well, you can see the bottom here, but it's from 2 to 5, so there's no ones in either uniqueness and artwork. We do remember that when it comes to artwork, most full supporters are rated fairly high, but this one seems to be still scoring above average for the artwork category. In terms of uniqueness, I would say this is a very unique card. There's only a few other cards come very close, but not for water Pokemon. You do have it for fighting Pokemon, which would come up soon, I guess, with Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick. So before we get it, let's combine all the results, shall we? So here's where we put them all together. We take the average of these 4 individual components, and then again we average each of these 4 pillars to arrive at the final average of 3.91. And if you followed any of the other episodes, you see 3.91 is pretty good. Like, it's definitely a upper placement. So what placement does it actually get? Let's quickly put it into the ranking. It's definitely better than Port Charon, that's going to be ranked all the way in the bottom, if you remember. So Archie's goes in a very solid 7th place. That's very good. Right in between Professor Juniper and Karina, with 0.06 up to Juniper and a little further down to Karina. So it's a very solid 7th place, I would say. And indeed, places nicely above average, I would say, all compared. Well, that doesn't finish all of it for Archie's Ace in the Hole, because of course we have bonus facts that you guys send in. So let's look at what you guys actually showed here. Well, besides Winning Worlds 2015, it actually been printed on 3 cards alone, which of course the full art for one of them. But there's also another card you may not have think about. If you think about, there's 4 if you count the pretend boss Pikachu. And why do I only mention 2 for Necessary Planet Freeze? Because there's also the original Archies back from the Magma Aqua series. That would be the 3rd one, which is actually the first print of it, of course. And of course I take the individual art, as the full art is 2 separate prints. And I didn't know it could be found in a picture with Jirachi in Alpha Sapphire. I had to go back and check that. I haven't really played many of those games in that generation. Maybe I should sit down and play them. I played all the way back at Red and Heart Gold. That was the 2 things I played in the beginning. And yeah, they seem to favor Maxi in terms of battling a lot, because you only battle Archie 1, but Maxi 3 times? Didn't know, but now I learned. Remember, if you want any of your fun bonus facts to be displayed in a future episode, don't hesitate to fill out the survey. But the last thing we're going to be doing here is to check who is up next. And for next year, as you may have already figured out if you know your line of full art supporters, we're looking at Maxi's hidden ball trick for the next episode. That was all I had for you today, so I hope you enjoyed this episode today here, and until next time.